What is up, everybody? Today I'm going to give you some pointers when considering a MacBook Air. Rather that be a Craigslist, Amazon, eBay, or one of the many third-party sellers online such as PowerMax that sell multiples of various MacBook Airs, of various versions and generations of MacBook Air. Now, me personally, I would not go anything older than, this is just me, I would not go personally anything older than about a 2012. And the reason for that being is because before 2012, 2008 through 2011, your base RAM was 2 gigabyte. And in 2010, Apple allowed more RAM to be ordered in the MacBook Air, 4 gigabyte. But even now, I think 4 gigabyte is still a little bit on the low side of things. So if you could find at least a 2012 MacBook Air, if you can, one of the more loaded ones with 8 gig. Now, most of these are likely going to have bigger SSDs, somewhere along the lines of like 256 to 512 gigs, and they're likely going to have the faster i7s. I think that's a 2 gigahertz, and that's a Sandy or an Ivy bridge. I believe that's a Sandy bridge, might even be an Ivy bridge in the 2012s. So what you're likely going to find is a loaded 2012 MacBook Air, on eBay or wherever you go and look. Now, do keep in mind with these older MacBook Airs, you get the SATA SSD and not the PCI, but slower read and write speeds, but the machine is still going to be very, very fast regardless it's SSD. You're also going to get slightly older graphics cards. You're likely going to get the HD graphics, I believe 3000 or 4000. If you were to go with the 2010, which I would not even bother going with, I think you would get a GeForce, I think a 320M GPU. But whether you go with again, this is me personally, a 2012, you're likely going to get a HD graphics 3000, and I'm not exactly sure how much megabyte that takes away from the system RAM, but if you're definitely on a budget and you want to get a MacBook Air, I wouldn't go any older than a 2012 MacBook Air. And what I would do is I would also recommend buying a USB 8 gigabyte USB thumb drive off of eBay that has an operating system on it already. What I would definitely take one of these machines up to, I would go right on up to Yosemite and just pop Yosemite on there, wipe the SSD and put 10.10, and then do whatever updates. I think it's like 10.10.1 or something like that. That's the current update for Yosemite. But I would bring it up to where you would on a new Mac be at. Put Yosemite on there. You're definitely gonna have older specs. Your processor is going to be older slightly. You're still going to get SSD. It's just not going to be the PCI-based SSD, but that makes really no difference at all. It's still going to boot very fast. But RAM, again, the reason why I say don't go as far back as at least a 12, or rather no older than a 12, is because if you buy a base 11, at least an 11-inch 2011 MacBook Air, you're going to get something about 64 gigs of storage and 4 gig of RAM, maybe even 2 gig. No, 2 gig, if not 4 gig, but you're going to get very, very little storage. Because that is what Apple offered back in the day. They offered, the cheapest machine had 64 gig of storage. I think the 64 gig of storage went up until 2012, maybe 2013. But I would try and find a MacBook Air fully loaded if possible. If you could get one that's got at least more storage and more RAM, if not the top of the line processor, I would go ahead and jump on it, and I would just use it. I would update to just keep using it. But if you're somebody like me, in my case, I'm probably gonna wait until next year, and then hunt around for 2013. Maybe beginning of next year, my birthday next year, hunt for a 2013 MacBook Air, a 13 or a 14. And then, let's see if I can find one. I'm actually starting to see refurbished, 13 and 14 models pop up. But right now, I would not go with older than a 2012 model MacBook Air, because the 2011s are 4 years old right now. I mean, they still got a couple years left in them, maybe a year or two, or maybe even 3 years at that, because if we go back to a long time, as a matter of fact, if we go back to the 2007 iMac, when they came out with those have been updated from Tiger, Leopard, Snow Leopard, Lion, Mountain Lion, Mavericks, and Yosemite. They've been updated 6 times. So, and the machine is 7 years old. So these 2011s should still have some life left in them. I personally wouldn't go for a 2011 MacBook Air. I'd go for about a 2012 if possible. But I'm just trying to sway potential buyers in the right direction. If the 2011 is all you can afford, the least you can do is a 2011. I would not even go to a 2010 or earlier. Now that you're really pushing it, you got even older hardware then, Core 2 Duo to be exact. You don't get the i5. Now, another thing to keep in mind with the older MacBook Airs is some of them do not support Power Nap, which is something to do with OS 10. But, if Power Nap is no big deal, or, AirDrop or anything like that, then go ahead and go with one of these older MacBook Airs. And another thing to remember is some of the older MacBook Airs, I think the 2011s, maybe the 2012s, do not support the continuity feature of Yosemite, which is where you can get a phone call on, say, your iPhone and pick it up on your Mac. They have to have Bluetooth 4.0 LE, and I believe the 2012s are the first first MacBook Airs to have the Bluetooth 4.0 on them. So some Yosemite features will not work on 2011 MacBook Airs. Some features like Power Nap and stuff may not work. So look at the features of Yosemite and then read what features work with what. But definitely would not go anything older than a 2012 MacBook Air, just because some features of Yosemite will not work. So this is just kind of my buying advice, kind of my couple tips to look out for when you're looking at one of these things. Don't just see the cheapest one and just grab it. Read up on that model. You can go to everymac.com, and if provided, most people should provide the model identifier, or excuse me, not the model identifier, the order number, which was like, it's a series of numbers and letters that identify the model. But to be pinpoint specific, get the serial number and go to everymac.com and type that in and see specifically what this machine is. Now, of course, some may be, a BTO, where they've ordered the better processor, more storage, or more RAM in them. So some might be a BTO model. But again, no older than a 2012 in my opinion. Probably next year I would probably say don't go anything older than a 2013. I wouldn't go anything more than 3 years old max. A 3-year-old machine is, plenty.